All right, let's get you an update now on that breaking news. Major news out of the United States this morning. Donald Trump has become the first president in American history to face criminal charges.
Let's bring in former White House Director of Events, Laura Schwartz in Chicago. Laura, great to have your insight on this. Mr. Trump has issued a statement. What were your thoughts?
Well, I think it's nothing surprising to us. It was in all caps on Truth Social, declaring that this is indeed a witch hunt in his eyes, and he wants to rally his supporters, much like he did at his actual rally last weekend. His attorneys released a statement as well, confirming the indictment, and also just that they will vigorously defend the president. And this is not only unprecedented, but not right. But yes, it is unprecedented for a former president to be indicted. And we will see this all unfold from here on out. It's U.S. history in the making.
So the precise charges, Laura, are not yet known publicly. They were filed under a seal. Explain for our audience, if you can, what are they likely to be?
Exactly. Everything's under seal. The district attorney in New York City that brought these charges against Trump, an investigation that happened, by the way, when Trump was still in office under his Department of Justice, will stay unsealed unless the DA's office wants to send them over to Trump's team ahead of his arraignment, which is supposedly going to take place next week in New York City. Now, as far as that unsealed document, it will be unsealed no matter what at the arraignment. So we may hear if it leaks from the Trump team prior. Otherwise, they're in New York City next week. We're looking at campaign finance violations and also election interference because he was possibly paying hush money to the former model, Stormy Daniels, so that it didn't get out in the last weeks of his campaign and cost him the election in 2016. And it's a matter of how that money was reimbursed.
So what happens now? I mean, I've just seen on Twitter that Ron DeSantis, who is the Florida governor, said he's not going to allow Trump to be taken away and arraigned. We've got live pictures of Trump's plane in Florida. That's just parked there. I mean, does he...
Yeah.
We're probably not going to see a perp walk here, but I guess he will be photographed and fingerprinted of sorts, won't he?
You're absolutely right, David. He'll fly to New York on his own volition. His lawyers have already indicated that. When he lands in New York, he'll either be taken to a secondary location or to the courthouse downtown Manhattan. Now, they've ordered all the NYPD officers to be in uniform starting tomorrow. That means both the officers on the beat ordinarily as well as those at their desks. They're already erecting barricades, additional cameras on lights in the area. Now, there's a vast area of underground tunnels that lead to the courthouse. So you're right, David. We don't expect a perp walk, handcuffed, walking in the front of the courthouse. But we do expect the coordination has already started between the United States Secret Service that guard all former presidents, the U.S. Marshal's Office, which are in charge of the court, as well as other lawyers in the game for Donald Trump to see how they will do the surrender. Fingerprints, by the way, aren't with ink anymore. They're digital, so he won't have to even wash his hands afterwards. And he will have his mugshot taken. Now, in New York State, mugshots are not released to the public unless they're a fugitive. So we're not sure if we will see that mugshot unless somebody, has an agreement to release it. We're not expecting to see that.
Okay, so the arraignment itself is likely to happen mostly behind closed doors. We'll see what happens in the streets of Manhattan, though. The NYPD, as you point out, they're taking no chances after what we saw on January 6th. Laura Schwartz, great to get your insights. Thank you for chatting with us today.
Thanks, guys.
Well, 2 Blackhawk helicopters have crashed in a deadly US military accident, killing 9 personnel on board. It comes less than 3 months after Australia spent $2 billion buying 40 of our own Blackhawk choppers from the US. Let's bring in Deputy Prime Minister Richard Marles in Geelong and Victoria, and opposition leader in Victoria. I was going to say victorious at the by-election this weekend. He's hoping. There he is in Melbourne, Peter Dutton. Good morning, guys. Richard, good morning to you first up. Is there any reason to be concerned about the helicopters we've just bought?
No, there's not. I mean, we've got a long history with the Blackhawks. We're very familiar with what they can do, how reliable they are, and they're a fantastic platform, and we're really confident about the future. I mean, obviously what's happened in America is just a tragedy. No doubt they'll go through their process of investigating that. There are always learnings from this, and we will take those learnings. But I just think what this highlights is that our servicemen and women and those in America, even in what they do in training, is dangerous because they train for a dangerous environment, and it's just another reminder to me of how important, significant and how difficult is the work that our servicemen and women do.
Okay, well said. Back home, a sizeable budget leak in the Fin Review this morning. Are you going to slug gas producers with a new tax in the budget?
No, I mean, this is a review of the petroleum resource rent tax, which was commissioned by the former government. I mean, they undertook this review. We haven't got the result of the review yet. When we do, we'll have a look at it.
Sounds like you're moving towards it.
At the end of the day, what this story is about is a review that Peter's government undertook, and we're waiting for that review. I mean, we're not going to go into what's in the budget.
Yeah.
Jim will talk about that. The Treasurer will talk about that in May. What you can be assured of is that the budget will focus on the cost of living as our last budget did, because we know the pressures that Australians are facing.
Pete, would you support a tax on gas producers?
Well, Carl, I just think families at the moment, the last thing they need is another tax increase under Labor, and people are already struggling to pay their power bills, and there's talk now about disruption to supply, particularly in relation to gas, a withdrawal of investment in our country, which means those royalties won't be coming in that go to fund schools and roads. So I think the government should rule it out, but as sure as night follows day, there will always be higher taxes in a Labor budget because they have a spending problem, and that's, I think, what we'll see in the budget come May.
Richard, regardless whether you do it or not, I'm not sure it's going to bring down prices. Where's that $300 gone?
Look, we are really focused on the pressures that Australians are facing because of global inflation. And you look at everything we've done since we've come to government. Cheaper medicines are in place. More affordable childcare is literally now about to happen. We've got fee-free TAFE. We took steps in December to ease the pressure on energy prices, which has actually had an impact. And when Peter was given the opportunity to support that, to support household budgets, he voted against that. I mean, when you look at everything we have done, we have been focusing on easing the cost of living pressures. We've been doing that in the face of the opposition of Peter and his opposition. And when it comes to taxes, Peter was in a government which was the second highest taxing government in our country's history. The only higher one was the Howard government. So, I mean, all this talk about taxes is complete rubbish. Peter was in a high taxing government. Yeah. We are actually doing something about the cost of living now, and Peter's busily opposing it.
Pete, how much should the minimum wage go up?
Well, just to come back to this for a second, Carl. I mean, Richard, name one suburb in Australia where power prices have gone down. I mean, you keep talking about power prices going down. Just name a suburb. I mean, a single household of where power prices have gone down.
I mean, that's a really
suburb.
A really easy point. Every suburb in this country and every suburb in the electorate of Aston would be facing higher power prices right now if you would have had your way in December and the measures that we put in place to reduce the pressure on power prices were defeated. And that's what you sought to do in December. Like, when you actually look at action here, we took action in December. You were given an opportunity to take it with us and you didn't. You opposed it.
I'd just love to see one family, Carl, on your show hold up a power bill that is cheaper now than when Labor first came in 10 months ago. Of course you're not. It's a nonsense.
Just in terms of Aston, Richard raised it. I raised it in the intro. How are you going to go, do you think?
Look, I think it's tight, but I think we get there. We've got Rashina Campbell, who's a great candidate. She's experienced. She's a really strong voice on the ground, really well received by the locals. She's a mum of three, a barrister, a counsellor, so she's got a track record of delivering for her community. Labor's first act in their budget last year was to cut road funding, and locals here, who are starting to bank up in traffic now on their way to work, understand that Labor had the opportunity to provide support to Aston, and instead they cut funding from here and put it elsewhere across the country. So I think we get there, but it's a tight race, as by-elections always are.
There's a fair bit riding on it for you personally?
Oh, well, I want to see Rashina become the local member because, as people realise, you don't change the government in a by-election like this. You're voting for a really strong local candidate and member of parliament, and Rashina Campbell is that person. She's the strongest candidate in the field, and I think she'll be a great MP. As I say, she's a mum of three. She brings, as a working mum, a real experience to parliament that we want, and I really believe that she will do a great job.
Okay, over to you, Richard, finally.
Oh, well, Mary Doyle is a great candidate. She's actually from Aston. She was our candidate at the last election. But this is, you know, a high mountain for us to climb. And this is an absolutely royal gold safe Liberal seat. We want to give people the opportunity to have their voice, to vote for Labor. And as I say, Mary is a great local candidate who has spent her life in this community. But this is going to be a big hill to climb.
All right, we're all in Melbourne for the weekend. Your shout, Richard.
Where are we going?
He wouldn't shout if a shark bit him.
Just the
Carl, you know
usual.
that.
Just go to Crown. What could go wrong?
That's where we're going. All right.
We'll take Dickie with us. We'll take Dickie with us, Carl.
Yes. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. It was the terrifying moment a young family was left traumatised. Check it out. After an attack in Melbourne southeast, the perpetrator kicking and punching their car, threatening to kill the pregnant woman and her unborn child. It was all completely unprovoked. For more, we're joined by Mahesh and Shruti now. Good morning, guys. Nice to see you this morning. Thanks for being on the show. Mahesh, can you explain how it all started?
Thanks, Carl, for having us here. Yeah, the incident happened on 17th March. We were having dinner in Huntingdale at our regular diner's place. After that, our petrol was running down, so we entered this service station. Because it was already past 9 o'clock, it was around 9:15. It was after 9 o'clock, the regular access was closed and we were asked to pay by the window. As usual, we paid the money there. We were like 30 meters away from our car. Me and my son were paid and we were walking towards the car. Some man entered the road from a different road, entered the service center from a different road. And even before he opened his helmet, you could see when it is playing there, he was shouting, he was screaming, he was pointing something at the teller. So initially, he tried to enter the service station. Because it was closed, he kicked it as hard as he could. And then he was threatening the service station teller. And when he was not successful there, he randomly looked at us. I was helping my son to sit down in his back seat and lock his seat belt. While this is happening, he started walking towards us. So I got into the car. First thing I did was I locked the car from inside.
Yeah.
My wife, who was sitting there and checking on her phone, had her windows closed. So she did not observe any of this happening.
Jeez,
So
Shruti.
the first impact for my wife was this person coming and kicking our car. It's a huge car. It's a Honda CR-V. You can closely observe the car. It shook. The car shook.
It's terrible.
And,
Shruti,
and my wife is a 30 weeks pregnant.
Yeah, I was just going to ask.
She
Shruti,
did not understand what happened, and what happened after that was even more terrifying, because the moment when he came closer to the car and 2 inches away from my wife, he saw her tummy and realized she's pregnant. That's when the horror started. He started continuously telling, "I'll kill you, I'll kill the baby, I'll kill you, I'll kill the baby." I don't know.
Shruti,
my wife started coming towards me in the driver's seat, and we had a brain freeze moment. We did not know why we did not leave that place. My son from the back seat is screaming. I don't know. It was one of the worst moments happened to us.
Sorry to interrupt. Shruti, you were in the passenger seat.
Yeah,
You're
that's
pregnant.
right. That's right.
Tell me what it was like for you. What did you experience?
Yeah, it was very bad moments because I was in a panic as soon as the car shook. That's where I got to realize because these guys went to pay I was sitting in the car and it was not locked when they were out. So as soon as they came and sit and locked, the whole car shook, and that's where I realized something wrong is happening. And the boy, that guy, he started shouting at me, looking at my tummy, saying that he'll kill me and he'll kill my baby. And I was terrified, and I was going towards my husband's side as he was trying to hit the glass window as well. And I was asking him to leave from the place. Maybe he was on the frozen, and I was I literally shouted at him, my husband, to leave the spot. And as soon as that, he'll be left from there. It was kind of traumatized for me for almost
Terrible.
2 days.
Look,
Yeah.
we're glad you're both all right and your family's okay. What happened to you was just disgraceful and awful episode, and we're sure glad you're okay. Thanks for being on the show. We really appreciate it. And if you have any information for police, call Crime Stoppers. The number is on your screen right now, 1800 333 000.
Terrifying stuff.
Awful. Now to an update on a story we brought you in December. At the time, the St John Ambulance program, the teachers' first aid in schools was facing the chop due to a lack of funding. That decision coinciding with a string of drownings over the Christmas period.
But thanks to the incredible generosity of Today viewers, we're delighted to say the program is back.
How good.
So good. Joining us now is CEO of St John Ambulance Queensland, Glenn Morrison, and some of the latest round of participants. So good to see you. Now, Glenn, this is such a wonderful result. How important is it to really have this funding to keep the program going?
Yeah, good morning, Sarah. Look, this is absolutely, I'm absolutely excited that we're able to continue this program. Last year we trained over 21,000 Queensland primary school students, which was absolutely amazing. And we really are creating the foundation for, in terms of their knowledge in their formative years, to be able to save a life. Because we know that primary school kids or young children, the people that they're going to impact is most likely their loved ones. So mum, dad, grandma, grandpa. So it's really exciting.
And this, it should be compulsory everywhere, right? How many children get to get this first aid training? What difference is it going to make?
Look, like I said, we did 21,000 this year. We have just over 6,000 booked for term 2, which is really exciting for us. And the training really does provide those life-saving skills, so how to roll someone on their side, how to clear an airway, which are some of the most important life-saving skills that we have. We know that in Australia that the average ambulance takes between 9 to 14 minutes once they're called, and if they're coming lights and sirens. We also know that it only takes 4 minutes to die from a blocked airway. So teaching primary school kids in these early years how to roll someone on their side, clear their airway, and just as importantly, know how to call for help and recognise help is absolutely mission critical.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's so important, isn't it, for this to get rolled out across the country in all schools? How can they get involved?
Yeah, look, so we're open to, obviously, to expanding and taking on more schools in terms of the capacity that we have at the moment. If schools or interested parties reach out to us via our website at www.stjohnqld.com.au. There's some great resources online there, as well as an inquiry form. We're happy to reach out and get in contact with you. And like I said, we are very keen on expanding the program statewide. We know in Queensland that there's just under 480,000 primary school students in our system.
Awesome.
So whilst we did 21,000 last year, which is absolutely amazing, it is just a drop in the ocean to what we absolutely could achieve. So we are looking, for sponsors and donors to help us expand this life-saving critical program across the state.
That's awesome, mate. Just get the kids to wave us to Australia. No pressure.
Can you guys all give Carl a big wave?
Hey, kids!
Everyone in Finlay here are very excited this morning.
We're so excited
good.
to have them.
Beautiful kids. Thank you so much, mate. Great program. Now to two cyber experts sounding the alarm on the rise of artificial intelligence. First, ChatGPT, but now this. Have a look at this. AI-generated images that look real enough to be actual photos. There's Dickie getting arrested in a park. While it's clearly a fake, many people have actually fallen for it.
Let's bring in Dickie now and cybersecurity expert Professor Richard Buckland. Dickie, let's start with you. I mean, a picture of yourself being arrested must have set you off a bit.
Well, yeah, I've never been arrested. I mean, it was sort of a laugh first time around, but then it happens and happens
That's right.
and happens. And I got arrested in London a couple of days ago. I mean, it's become a feeding frenzy.
Yeah.
I can sort of almost see the funny side of that, but the trouble is they lead somewhere else. And there are other stories about me being sued by the Bank of Australia, of which there isn't one, for giving improper financial advice. And all these things lead somewhere where people click and are taken somewhere where they can potentially invest and lose money on my watch.
I had to, when this came across my Instagram feed, I had to look twice. But between us, you never wear anything other than skinny jeans, and I saw these baggy jeans. It's not Dickie.
That's not Dickie.
But I was shocked at first.
Yeah. Well,
and then I rang you and I said,
you okay?
Yeah.
Well, I've had a lot of calls from all around the world from people saying, what's going on. The the thing that gets me is that Facebook and Instagram and all these people have this content matching AI technology. There was a woman's breast that was so offensive, they managed to take that down. You post something up with some copyright, like a song that you don't have permission for, and
bang.
they'll get rid of that. The record companies are all over that. This stuff has been reported thousands of times. I've literally had thousands of people sending me this stuff. Surely they can, I don't know, get rid of it.
We'll come back to you in a sec. Professor, I mean, what Dickie is saying is so true that it's being used for other things. That's pretty easy technology. These deep fake images, can we do anything about it?
It's very difficult, Carl. It used to be expensive and hard to do. Now it's available to anyone. And we can't really tell. In fact, there's been research out recently that shows that people aren't able to tell between fakes and reals if the fakes are good enough. So it's a real problem.
Are there really not enough algorithms out there that can detect the fake?
No, that's the problem. Actually, the way the fakes are generated are by two algorithms fighting each other, making it more accurate. They're sort of playing a game, and they don't stop until it's really good. So it's sort of whack-a-mole. We could try and look for the reporting that Richard talked about is a good way of taking them down, but the photos themselves are so good now that our trust in photos is probably misplaced now.
Who do you suggest I sue?
I think you're spot on going for Facebook. I think the people that provide the images should have a mechanism for taking them down. It's celebrities at the moment, but it could be your mum or my mum or anyone could be affected by this. There does need to be a mechanism now we've got this new problem to fix it.
Well, my kids are affected. They don't like seeing their dad or granddad getting arrested in a park on the other side of the world. I mean, it's just rubbish. Yeah.
It's awful, and you're probably a bit used to rough stuff in the media, but to normal people, to non-celebrities, like the lady in China recently that committed suicide, it can be so devastating when images of you are up there, making it look like you're doing something. We're so used to trusting images, and it's hard to untrust them. Once you've seen something, you sort of carry the memory, even if you know it's not true. The memory's still there, so it is a serious problem.
Finally and quickly, if it's mum and dads out there, and that's the real worry here, apart from obviously our concern for Dickie, but what can people do?
I think there's not much. It's a crime where the victims are very powerless. If the social media companies and people sharing these images and stories don't take them down, there's not much we can do. We can be a bit careful about letting our image get out there, but that's so hard nowadays.
Okay. Appreciate it. And Dickie, you're going to take legal action?
A couple of lawyers have approached me. Maybe I should take one for the team and bring it on.
Yeah.
You're interested to see how that falls too, right?
Yeah.
All right, you go ahead and you pay the lawyers, and I'll see you at the back end.
See you at the finishing.
Let him know how it goes.
See you at the party.
Fingers crossed.
Do love a party.
Hey there, Today fans. Sarah and...
What's my name again?
Oh my God, Carl.
Hey, thanks for watching our YouTube channel, though. Subscribe now for more news, special reports, and amazing Aussie stories.
And Carl misbehaving,
Whoa,
of course.
that never happens.
Always happens.
What's she talking about?
Always happens.